welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I am Deborah Gilbert, your host. I'm so glad that you could spend some time with me today, and I have a fabulous show for you today, so thank you again for being here. What we're going to do today is talk about the Ivoryton Playhouse, which is located in Ivoryton, Connecticut, and I have the pleasure of having Jacqui Hubbard, the Executive Artistic Director, here with me for the Ivoryton Playhouse. If you're looking to find them, they're at ivorytonplayhouse.org. And Jacqui, thank you so much for being here today. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate it too. It's taken me out of the craziness of the world and brought me here to your lovely studio, so thank you.
We will talk about that, but why don't we talk about you and your background and where you came from and what brings you here and to the theater?
Sure. So I grew up in the northeast of England, which is the part that nobody ever visits. It's industrial, and it was coal mines, and you know, it's surrounded by some beautiful countryside, but and it's also one of the poorer parts of England. So I'm the oldest of 5 children, and my mother was a great storyteller. And most of my childhood, she would take us out for walks and tell us stories. And then we got home, I would decide that I was going to direct all my brothers and sisters, and we would act it out. So it started when I was about 7, probably in my mother's kitchen, directing shows, putting stories down on paper, giving everybody their parts, dressing up. I never really thought of doing anything else. And went to university in Leeds. Actually went to study radio. I had a part-time job as a teenager working on our local BBC radio station, Radio Tees, and I loved it. It was so much fun. But when I got to university and wandered into the drama department, I knew I was sunk. I was never coming out. And had a wonderful time. And when I graduated, I got a job. In England, the arts were very well funded. Every school had a theater company attached to it. So I was part of a 4-person company. We worked with high schools, middle schools, elementary schools. We dramatized history, we dramatized physics. We worked with the kids we would perform a Shakespeare, then we would have them do their version of it. It was a wonderful program. But sadly, like all things, it came to an end with, hate to say her name, but Margaret Thatcher was elected, and we lost our grant. And that was when I started to look around for where else I could find work. And at the time, my boyfriend got a job in the Florida Keys building the 7-mile bridge. And that to me sounded like paradise. So I thought, I'll come out for the summer. And that was in 1980, and I'm still here.
What happened from the Florida Keys to bring you up into Connecticut?
Well, many things. I was married for 20 years. I have 2 wonderful daughters, and bridge builders tend to spend 3 years on a project. So we trekked around the country, and I worked with various theater companies, Savannah, Georgia, probably being my favorite. And when we came here, Ian did the Baldwin Bridge over the Connecticut River. So we were here for 3 years for that, and that was in 1990, and I decided to stay. So I'm still here.
So when he was doing the bridge, Baldwin Bridge, you were living in the Essex-Ivoryton area?
Yes, so I came here in 1990, and I had a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I wasn't sure what to do. I had taught, I had worked in theater, and I was out. I'd only been here a week or so, and I was driving around, and I passed the Playhouse. I thought, that looks like a theater. Looked in the window, it was completely empty, nobody in there. I asked at the different businesses, found out that it was run by a group of volunteers, and that it was rented out in the summer to a New York theater company, but the other 9 months of the year, it was vacant. So I called them and said, I would like to do some theater. And they said, okay, sure. Why not? What do you want to do? I said, well, I think I want to do children's theater. So I spent my first 4 or 5 years there doing theater for children, which was so much fun. My kids were little, so they took part in it. And their parents started to want to get involved. So I opened it up to community theater. I did Oliver with adults and children. I did Fiddler on the Roof with adults and children. And I did that until 1998. And at that point, I think the foundation realized if the theater was going to be a growing concern, somebody needed to run it. Because as it was a small board of volunteers. So I was hired to run the place, and I've been there ever since. I'm just thinking right now, that's about 22 years ago.
I know.
Yeah.
The television studio here gave me some information. It's the Ivoryton Playhouse, a century on stage, 1911 to 2011, for me to research about the Playhouse, about you, and everything that has to do with the creation of this wonderful playhouse that people enjoy theater at. Tell me about the history of the building and about Ivoryton itself.
Sure. Well, I think one of the things that's really kept the Playhouse going and makes it stand apart is the community that surrounds it. The building was built in 1911, and it was built as a community hall for the factory workers of the Comstock Cheney piano factory. So in that building, it was sort of an ad hoc town hall. They had town meetings, they had basketball games, they had card playing nights, they had dances, they had vaudeville groups come through. I even found, in digging through the old boxes of archives, the original license that was given to the theater to show silent movies. I think that was in 1920 something. So the Playhouse building itself has a very special place in the heart of the village. When radio started to become very popular and movies, there was less of a need for people to buy pianos. You know, at one point, every home had a piano. People gathered around the piano every night. But it became less and less important in the 20s, and so piano production slowed down. And there was, I think, 3 piano factories up the Connecticut River, and it was all consolidated into one. And so a lot of people, you know, found work in other places. And the Playhouse itself was shuttered. What happened in 1930 was very interesting. A man called Milton Stiefel, who was a stage manager, production manager in New York with David Belasco, had a nervous breakdown and came to the country to recuperate. I think he stayed with Beatrice Lilly in Old Lyme. But they were driving around looking at the wonderful countryside of New England, and he spotted the Ivoryton Playhouse, well, at what was then the Comstock Cheney Hall, and he said, that will make a great theater. Which was crazy because there were no roads leading to it. It was in the middle of nowhere. Who was going to come to a theater in Ivoryton, a place that nobody had heard of? But he gave it a shot, and the first year they could barely cover their costs. But the amazing thing that happened, which really, I think Milton even would agree to this, was Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn, who was a young, unknown actress, she came down from Hartford, and she demanded a principal role in one of the plays. And Milton laughed and said, you're too young, you're an ingenue, you can, you know, play this small role in, I think it was The Cat and the Canary. Nope, I want the leading role, and if you do, my father is very important in Hartford. He will fill your theater. Everybody from Hartford will come down to see this. And she was right, they did. Milton caved, gave her the lead. She was terrific. He gave her the lead in 2 more shows that summer. And it sort of got the wheels moving. People knew the next year to look for the Playhouse to see what was happening there. And from 1930 up through the 60s, Ivoryton Playhouse became one of the main theaters on what was known as the Straw Hat Circuit, which was a whole series of theaters up the Northeast coast, from Westport to Dennis on the Cape, all the way up to Ogunquit. And because there was no air conditioning in New York City, actors would be part of a company, especially the well-known stars, would come and hone their craft up the East Coast. So we would have, in Ivoryton, you might have 10, 8 to 10 shows a summer. They came for a week. And they would pack their bags on Monday, travel up to the next theater, and they would run from Tuesday through Sunday, sometimes 2 shows a day. And the Playhouse had so many stars that came through on that Straw Hat circuit.
Tell me now, we'll talk a little bit about many things, but COVID has now hit the theater. How is the theater doing, and how are all of your people doing at this time?
Well, we don't have it, but we feel as though we have it, because it has paralyzed us, of course, as every other theater in the nation. It has, we closed down on the dress rehearsal, I think it was March 17th, of the opening show of our 2020 season, which was a comedy musical called Forbidden Broadway. In fact, when I walk back in the theater now, I see the stage is set, the costumes are ready, the wigs are in place because it was all quick changes. Everything is there for an actor to come and step in and start the show. So that was shocking to everybody, of course, not just us. As of right now, the state of Connecticut has not opened theaters, so we are still not allowed to open. It's not just the small group of full-time people that kept that theater apart, running, our family, as it were, who are laid off right now. But it's the over 120, 150 actors, designers, dancers, choreographers, directors that would have come through our doors over the course of a year that have found themselves unemployed. The theater community has been very hard hit, because even if theater does come back, it cannot come back in the same way. Not for quite some time, because theater of its very nature is a bringing people together. It is the whole point of live theater and not a movie is you're getting to be part of an experience with a whole group of other people. You're sharing, real emotion that's happening in front of you on a stage. And if you have to put plastic or masks or something in front of that, then that bond has gone, so that in many ways the point of theater has gone. So trying to find creative ways to work around that is going to be very interesting. In fact, one of our actors, Kimberly Emanuel, she was with me last year, she is in the only union-sanctioned production that has been allowed this year, and it's up in the Berkshires, and it is Godspell. And they're performing it under a tent, masks on, masks off, rolling plexiglass. If you know Godspell, there is the crucifixion, a contactless the actors cannot touch each other. It's fascinating. I find it scary, but at least they're trying to find a way to work through this. And I can't wait, because for me, I feel starved of that. And I know a lot of people feel the same way, that it was an important part of their lives. We would do 7 professional plays a year, and we have around about 2,000 subscribers. That's 2,000 people who come to every one of those shows. And I've had a lot of letters and emails saying, we just feel starved for that. So we're just all waiting along with the rest of the world.
We're just going to take a moment. We're going to take a break right now. You're watching Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert. We'll be right back.
With newspapers and media outlets merging all over the country, communities are losing their local voice.
There's so much going on in the community that I think doesn't really, there's a lot of folks who are unaware of it. And I think things like this can bring it out into the community, and in that way kind of bring the community together.
Information to our residents is the key to good governance. And with the national media and local media not often covering us, this is an excellent opportunity for us constantly to communicate with our constituents and also to have them communicate with us.
The best outcomes will be achieved through a community-based organization that grows its operation and scale by means of locally produced programming.
All of our content is volunteer produced, so we do shows from talk shows to music shows, working with high schools.
VSC-TV is committed to ensuring that the investment made to secure these powerful tools will pay great dividends in the community for many, many years.
Welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and we have the pleasure of talking about Ivoryton Playhouse, which is located in Ivoryton, Connecticut. And if you would like to find out more information, please visit their website. It's ivorytonplayhouse.org. And I have the pleasure of having Jacqui Hubbard, the Executive Artistic Director, continue to be my guest with me today. And Jacqui, again, thank you again for being here. We all appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
So we were talking about COVID just for a second more. How is the inside of the building? You had told me before that things have changed.
Well, it's been empty for a while, and though I go in every week and open the doors and tell it how much I love it, and that we'll be back. And I was very worried about the power outages because we leave a ghost light on the stage, you know, because that's a centuries-old theatrical tradition. You never leave a dark theater. That's a very bad luck. And so we always have one light burning on the stage, and I was very worried that the light was out. But it's back on right now. But because it's old and because it's, you know, musty, there was some mold, and I was saying I think I have to go back and clean up a little mold and make sure that it's not spreading. And try and keep the place going on life support until we get back. Because we're not able to produce, we have wonderful, wonderful support. The community around us here are phenomenal and have stepped up. We have a very small skeleton crew in the office who have been contacting people, offering refunds and gift certificates and whatever. And, you know, of course, many people, I totally understand it, want refunds. There have been a lot of people who've just donated the money back, which has been absolutely wonderful. And we decided that since we can't produce, what do we do? How do we keep this place going? So we're selling, I'm just going to push it. I'm going to sell my little t-shirts. Here they are. I helped keep the Ivoryton Playhouse afloat in 2020. Is that not a gorgeous t-shirt?
It's a gorgeous t-shirt.
So we're selling these, and people who performed at the theater have been helping us. Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees called me and said, I'll take one and I'll wear it for you, Jack. So I sent him a t-shirt, and he proudly put his t-shirt on and had his picture taken with it. Mike Reese, who is a writer for The Simpsons, who's been a big friend of ours, we've done several of his plays, we sent him t-shirts. So a lot of the actors have been stepping up and saying, you know, we'll help you sell you whatever it takes to keep this place going so we can come back one day.
When you do come back, do you have plans of shows or things that you're thinking of doing that you would like to be able to pursue next?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about this time, you know, we usually are going so fast. I look at my calendar every day and see what I should have been doing this day. And I think, how did we do this? How did I have so many appointments in a day? You know, it was craziness. So the slowing down has made us really look at how we operated and how, you know, we did one show after another without a breathing space. So I think it will be different when we come back. We will be very thoughtful about what we do. We, of course, want to do good plays that people want to see. There won't be as many musicals when we come back until we find a safe way for singers to, you know, sing without projecting what could be risky for the audience. We have Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. And of course, if there's a vaccine and if there is treatment, I think that's the most important thing. If somebody contracts the virus, but there is a treatment that you can take that makes it not dangerous, that would be huge. I think a lot of people are still nervous about a vaccine. So I have a lot of 1 and 2 person plays that I'm really interested in doing. I have some pieces that incorporate more mixed media. We're looking at interactive theater that you don't interact by touching, but maybe you interact on your phone, maybe you interact in other ways. So I find that the younger people I work with are the ones who are most optimistic because they're able to think outside the box. I think a lot of people my age, we've been used to doing theater a certain way, and we were devastated. All we could think of was, how do we do this? How do we do this? And the younger people were able to say, well, what about this? Well, why don't we try this? And it's been, again, a huge learning experience for me to sit and listen and say, I need to hand some of this over and let them run with it. And they have the ideas. They are more tuned in to what we will be able to do. And the interesting thing for me is it's always been part of our mission to try and get young people into the theater. And by young, I mean under 50, because most theater goers are over 50. Maybe if the younger people are able to take it on and come up with stuff, we might get a younger audience, because I know an older audience is going to be very nervous about coming back to a place where people are inside and confined. So, you know, there could be some big changes, but some of them may be positive. I do want to say also, we're in a very enviable position in that the way the Playhouse was built, not as a theater, as a community hall, we have 5 big double doors leading into our theater. So everybody's not funneling in through one door. We can have 5 entrances. We can make sure that people come in and go straight to the seat and never pass anybody else. We also, you know, and we can have the doors open for 2 hours before a performance for great air circulation. We also have spent this time putting in, upgrading the air conditioning and putting in an ultraviolet system to cleanse the air as it goes through. So I feel very comfortable that when we are allowed to open, that we will be safe, you know.
How do you attract, in general, a younger audience?
Yes. Well, it's hard because younger audiences don't have the same disposable income in many ways as older people have. So I offer half price nights on Thursday evenings, and I offer student rate, cheaper rate tickets. And I've tried every year to put in a couple of shows that push the boundaries a little, that my older audience might go, that's not for me. For example, Rent. Now, Rent is not a new show, but it's still a show for younger audiences. So, you know, trying to put shows that would attract them every season. Plus, we do shows for schools every season. Last year, we did Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And this year, the plan was The Great Gatsby. And we had many schools booked for that, but maybe we'll be able to try that again soon.
Speaking of schools, do you have young people from schools come through the Playhouse for tours or for information or for seeing a play itself?
Yes, we do. We have a lot of schools come to see shows, but it's interesting you talk about tours, because one of the things, once we're allowed to open, one of the things that we're thinking of doing with the building is making it a sort of a living theater museum until we can produce. When we build a show, the set designer does a small diorama of what the set will look like. The costumer does drawings and mock-ups of costumes. And so what we thought we might do is set up the house so that tours could come through and see the process of putting on a play from the technical aspect. So there will be tours of the theater in the very near future. Before we can produce, I can promise you that that's one thing we will be doing.
Before I forget, tell me about the building itself. I know that it's old, but it has property. What's the inside like?
So it's an old Victorian proscenium theater. You can tell when you walk in, this is historic. It's like a little music box, I always think. It's small. When I first took over, if you know what a proscenium opening is, the stage ended there. And Milton Stiefel, I was told, in the 30s and 40s, used to cram in 500 people. We've built the stage out. so that you can connect more with an audience, which is a lousy thing right now, but was great when we thought about it. So we only have 280 seats now, but they're more comfortable, more spacious seats. And then in the basement, also before I took over, the basement was just a waterlogged cellar with a little corner of it that had a couple of dressing rooms squeezed in, which when I think about Marlon Brando and Mae West and Tallulah Bankhead in these tiny little dressing rooms, I think, what were they doing? So we gutted the basement, so we now have beautiful dressing rooms, showers, toilets, and a kitchen down there, and it's a lovely space. It really is, which is why I'm worried about the mold.
Of course you are. Well, we are running out of time, but I'd like to give you the opportunity for some closing thoughts. Is there anything you'd like the viewer to know?
Yes, I would like to. First of all, I want to say a big thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. And thank you to our community for keeping us afloat, because I cannot tell you how wonderful this community is and how much they value the arts. There's so many places I know where they're struggling, and we're struggling, but we know that we have a community of people that will help keep us afloat. And I also want to let them know we're doing our best. We really are. And as soon as we have any opportunity to do anything, we will be back. We'll be back with a vengeance.
Well, it's been wonderful to have you. Thank you so very much for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Deborah.
And I'm Deborah Gilbert. You've been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. I'm glad that you've been able to spend some time with us. Again, my guest has been Jacqui Hubbard, the Executive Artistic Director for the Ivoryton Playhouse, and you can find that at ivorytonplayhouse.org. Again, you've been tuned into Arts and Entertainment. I look forward to seeing you again next time. See you soon.